made me think about like when I was a kid, I had like a set of tools that had like blue painted handles. So I did like this dive on the internet. It's the Handy Andy Kids Toolkit. And
didn't that prove to be prophetic? Welcome to the Fine Homebuilding Podcast, our weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design topics aimed at anybody who cares deeply about the craft and science of working on houses. This is Senior Editor Patrick McComb. Today I'm joined by Fine Homebuilding Editorial Director Andrew Zellner.
Hey, Patrick.
Operations Manager for TDS Custom Construction, Ian Schwant.
Hello, everybody.
And our visiting producer, Jeff Rose, in from California. Currently, he's ranching in addition to helping us host the show. So thanks for being here, Jeff. You're supposed to be on vacation.
Yeah, well, it's vacation-like.
We'll talk more about that. I can't wait to. You can find previous podcasts and check out the show notes at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. Well, guys, it's great to see you. So, Jeff, do you want to tell folks what you're doing out there in California?
Yeah, well, out here visiting my father-in-law, who has a small ranch south of San Jose. So I've been helping him out. It's actually getting a little bit of rain lately, so they tilled the pastures, and I helped a little bit with that, and so spent hours riding around on a tractor.
Was it enjoyable? Was it crazy hot? What was that like?
No, it was very comfortable. I mean, probably upper 60s, low 70s. It was nice. I mean, it was a lot like mowing the lawn, really.
What are you growing?
Just fodder for the horses.
Jeff has also been horseback riding, I understand.
Yep.
How's that going?
That was fun. I mean, I've been on a horse before, but I've never, gone on an extended ride. So that was nice, and it took some getting used to, but it was fun. And around here, it's horseback riding usually includes a beer in one hand and the reins in the other. So
that sounds
very different than the equestrian events you're probably used to in the Tony parts of Connecticut, right?
Not quite dressage or.
So how long has that ranch been in the family? Is that a new thing, or has it been a long time?
It's relatively new. I mean, the past 20 years or so. My father-in-law's significant other was a horse person, and so they moved from San Jose, where they had to go drive an hour to visit the horses, to walking up the driveway to feed the horses.
And you mentioned that there are other horseback riding. Is it because it's an agricultural community, or is it just a horse mecca for people who are hobbyists?
Well, in this little neighborhood, it's mostly hobbyists, but I mean, we're surrounded by heavy-duty agricultural. I mean, we're like 10 miles from Gilroy, which is the garlic capital of the world.
I've learned that through a TV documentary. Yeah.
Walnuts and apricots and strawberries, and so you passed some broccoli fields the other day. And
isn't the sriracha plant nearby too?
That's up near Oakland, I think.
Okay. Wow. Well, that's cool. Are you enjoying yourself?
Yeah. It's a nice change of pace.
Have you gotten back onto West Coast time?
Yeah, that happened pretty quickly, surprisingly.
It'll be fun coming home.
Yeah. Well, the red eye always messes you up so completely it doesn't really matter.
Andrew, you sent photographs of your project that you've been working on lately. Do you want to describe that for listeners, please?
Yeah, so my wife is an artist, and she just rented some studio space in a big artist building here in Northeast Minneapolis. And, after having spent the last couple of years like building a bunch of like storage into our home for her to have an art studio here, I got to build, it's just over 27 lineal feet of shelving units in this.
That are what, 7 or 8 feet tall?
So the supporting 2x4s are 2x10s, so they're pretty tall. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was my Thanksgiving weekend project, was building all of the shelves and then installing them the week after Thanksgiving.
It was clear, despite using somewhat utilitarian materials, you put a lot of effort and thought into the design.
So I'm a stickler for not overbuilding utilitarian furniture and shelving. And so, yeah, the shelf structure itself is 2x2s with a piece of hardboard over the top, and then 2x4s for kind of like the legs. And then you just anchor it all into the wall, and it's rock solid. And and it's like way more shelf space than Jill has ever had. So
It looks amazing.
I get one shelf to keep stuff on there. So not sure what that's going to be, but yeah.
There must be some kind of like library ladder or tall step ladder planned for the space, because those shelves are tall.
Yeah. So we've got like a step stool that like I can reach the top shelf, but Jill's not as tall as I am. So I think they're going to get probably just like a 6-foot step ladder to keep in the space.
They look great.
Thanks.
Ian, you're launching into a bigger project than any of us. Go ahead.
Headlong into the shed mahal we go. Yeah, you had
a few piles of material on the ground, it looked like.
Yep, we've sourced all the material is there. Trusses were delivered. We had the guy that did all the concrete for our house. He has a 14-inch diameter auger attachment for his Bobcat. So he came over earlier this week and did all the holes. And tomorrow I'm going to get out there and figure out the depths for the little concrete pad that we've got to drop into the bottom of the holes. So that way we know we don't have one that's too deep. So that when we get up to setting the trusses, we know that we don't have a short post
that's not measuring up.
Yeah, so that'll be my task for tomorrow. We're supposed to have high winds with like 30+ mile an hour gusts out here, so I don't know if we'll quite get to tipping the posts up or not tomorrow, but
it sounds like perfect conditions for that. Yeah.
yeah, and for the after show, we're going to talk about how Andrew and I dress when we're working out here on the Great Plains, right? give some fashion suggestions.
Absolutely.
Well, I wish you great success. It looks like a phenomenal amount of work. God bless you.
Not hopping on the plane to come out here.
Well, you're gonna have it all.
I wanted
like,
it to be a little colder,
Christmas,
Ian.
Right?
I'm thinking January. If you did that in January, I'd come out. But
we'll see. I've thrown the call to service out to everybody who I know that is in the area that does that kind of work, and with the hey, if you got some time in December and you're looking to do some pole barn work, feel free. So we'll see, but. Other than that, I've just been cranking out Pro Talks for you and having a blast doing that podcast.
And you're doing such a fantastic job. It is a joy to hear you. And you've had some younger guests on, which has been a very refreshing perspective. So thank you very much for doing that. You're doing a tremendous job for the brand.
Good. I'm having a great time doing it.
I wish I could say I've been having a great time doing all the things I've been doing around the house. So you guys heard about my overhang project. I have been making headway. I'm on the final section of it, which is the front gable. I figured I'd do the money side of the building last to really get my systems all in place. But because I don't see it from the house, my motivation has been less than the other sides of the house, which were just filthy dirty. So what'd you guys think? Does it look better?
Yeah, I think it looks good.
Yeah, looks great.
It's not an easy project doing that.
No, it sucks with every fiber of my body. It's terrible. It's only 2 scaffold frames tall, but my God, that's terrifying up there. And I don't know why. It's like, why is it any different than being on the ground? But it totally is.
I'll spare you the the details of when Dave Seegers and I were on a job for HVP, and we had a 2-story baker tip over on a project. Save that one for when you're done.
You must have been moving it. No one was on it, of course.
We were
right?
moving it. Yeah. We were moving it, and one of the wheels busted, and it went down.
Oh God, it's so scary. And of course, our podcast after show is largely a genesis of my work too, because if you guys notice the sweatshirt I'm wearing, it's custom. It's super custom. There is not a single one in the world like this. So I've been using bleach for listeners to clean the aluminum fascia on my barn and the vinyl siding, and it's made for a really cool sweatshirt.
Got a hat like that.
Yeah. So it's going okay. I got just one more side to do, and if folks are interested, take a look at the photographs. I put a couple on the podcast page, along with Ian's material piles, holes, and Andrew's shelving, and some photos that Jeff sent in from where he is in California. So there's good reasons to go to the podcast page this week, so I hope you will. So, as always, we heard from our listeners, and this first one comes from Brad. Hey, guys, I've been a long-time listener of the podcast, and you guys have given me some advice on various remodeling projects over the years. From October 2021 to July 2022, I embarked on building a custom home for our family. This was my first 100% solo build GCing the project. I flip houses for a living and have done that for a number of years, flipping a lot of houses. I've also built 2 new construction homes through a builder, and so I'm not new to new construction by any means. The project was my guinea pig to start building my own style of houses. I'm planning to taking the vast marketing knowledge I've learned over the years in my current business and pairing that with the home building and starting up the brand building company, High Performance Smaller Houses, under 2,000 square feet, here in the metro Atlanta area where I live. I learned a lot during the project, made mistakes, did some things right, and of course I went way over budget. Who doesn't? But I feel like I built built our family a house that will last for many years. Oh, and by the way, it's the most comfortable home I've ever lived in. I just finished editing and uploading all of the videos I took to my YouTube channel. I wanted to share it with you guys and hope you enjoy. So I looked at a couple of the videos, and I think he did a fantastic job, right?
Yeah, great video work too.
Yeah. And I think he built a pretty sensible house, right?
Yeah, it's a great house, and like you can tell he's got some marketing chops too.
Yeah.
Actually, we were talking about this earlier today, Patrick, about like the idea that like someone could start a contracting business and like their business model could just be, I get back to you within a day, like response time, and it feels like there's like this, that like communication goes like such a long way especially in the home building world.
So the conversation started with saying, why are contractors so often stereotypically bad business people, and they're spacey, right, is the reputation, and they don't call you back or whatever. So we're saying if you could just do that you'd be a huge leg up over so much of the competition. Yeah. Ian, why are so many remodelers and builders bad at that in your estimation?
I think it's the lack of business training for people who are not making the amount of money that puts you into the orbit of different groups that can help you elevate that and help you learn how to be a better financial business person as well as a tradesperson. One of the pro talks that I did that'll probably come out after this is with Victoria Downing, who is the one of the founders of the roundtables that they do at Remodelers Advantage, and we talk about this very, very issue on there of scaling up your business owner abilities.
I don't know what the right answer is, because scaling up a business is expensive, right? And I think we all have seen that residential construction is a very up and down kind of business, so it's hard, right?
I think sometimes too, people who are looking to have work done are hesitant to go to some type of business that they think is really expensive. For instance, my aunt and uncle live in Florida, and they're trying to get a bathroom redone, and they can't get any regular contractors to call them back. But they drove by a high-end bath studio that installs their own work and refused to go inside because it looked too expensive. So, I bet they would have called you back, though, at least given you a price.
Yeah. We were talking about referrals in this same conversation that Andrew and I were having earlier today. And, that's a mixed bag too.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think referrals are good, but if you're not expanding your business reach out into communities that you wouldn't have served before, you're really missing out on some growth opportunities. Especially if you're in Atlanta, which is a just onward growing, massive metro area.
Yeah, booming metro area.
What do you guys think about the under 2,000 square foot house focus?
I think it's fantastic, but it's hard to make money. I'm guessing it's harder to make money in that size house than a bigger one.
It feels like there's like an economy of scale that like prohibits building small houses.
You're nodding, Ian.
I think it's a market issue. So if the market is looking for and demanding 2,500 to 3,000 square foot homes, that's what your potential clients are looking for. But also you have to think about how people buy homes, and if the entire model of mortgage financing is based on recent sales of homes, you're going to have a really difficult time finding new homes or even homes that have been remodeled recently in that under 2,000 square foot range.
We have more about the value of real estate and the cost of things coming up in the show with a question written in from a carpenter who wrote in about the projects he's working on, which I found to be very interesting. And we also heard from Dan Kolbert about everything. And he says, "Dear Patrick, Kylie, and Ian, I've got multiple comments on episode 513, so strap in. First off, of course, Patrick is right to be suspicious of the Farmer's Almanac weather predictions, which are, I'm not going to use the word on the air, which he did, but I already sent Patrick this. Dubious, yeah. It's depressing that I have to make this argument. For one thing, the Almanac predates Noah. Why does it need Noah's data at this point? You guys are ruining your science nerd cred. Second, the question about nail-a-base / re-roofing. The writer asked if his idea would weigh any more than PV panels, etc. It's a good question, and no decent solar installer would put up an array without first making sure the roof could hold it. Also, from the description, it sounds safe to assume that the existing roof is already underbuilt, and no PE would sign off on that for its current use, much less adding to it. That it hasn't collapsed is good proof that the current load is fine, but adding a whole new roof system could be a problem. If your writer does end up going down the road of recycled foam, be aware that there are often significant variations in thickness. If he's going to vertically strap for ventilation, which he should, it's not such a big deal. I think what Dan is talking about there is that what are thought to be flat roofs are often gradually or slightly sloped with the foam insulation layer to a drain, right? Third, aero barrier. Just yesterday, I was teaching a class for Passive House Maine, and one of the attendees, a young carpenter, asked me about improving a house she was thinking about buying. My immediate thought was to set off an aero barrier bomb before she moves in. Neither the siding nor the interior finishes needed to come off, so it sounded like the perfect solution. The only time I could see it making sense on new construction would be if you failed the blower door test. I haven't used it yet, but am excited to get a chance to, and told her to make sure to invite me if she ends up using it. Well, Dan, the other reason to use aero barrier is if you hate like spending hours of your life taping with your air sealing tape. I mean, I don't think most people become carpenters to like tape fabric onto wood for hours on end.
Or apply miles of silicone bead everywhere to try and caulk everything so that it stops
That's important
leaking.
work, but I mean, come on. Am I missing the boat on aero barrier, guys? What do you think? Is it a crock? Is it cheating? I've heard people say it's cheating.
If you're not cheating, you're not trying. It's like auto racing, man. Construction and auto racing should share that. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Well, I think too, it's like a time and resources thing. Like if you can afford it and you don't want to spend all the time doing other things, there's nothing wrong with it.
It's just another tool in the toolbox. And
that's what I'm
like
saying.
every other...
You know, we the technologies change. Like just because it seems too good to be true doesn't mean it has to be.
Yeah, there's a right place for everything.
Spray foam gets Dan's ire next. Here we go. In addition to the incredible environmental cost and the potential harm to installers and occupant health, spray foam seems to attract more than its fair share of snake oil salesmen. Perhaps why Homes on Homes likes it. Just a few months ago, I went to a local NHB event where some meatheads were claiming that their prefab model only needed a couple inches of insulation because of the magical properties of spray foam. I hadn't heard this stupid claim in a decade or more and was disappointed to hear it rearing its ugly head again. It is consistently oversold as a solution. It has many wonderful qualities, but it is treated as a magic bullet that can insulate, air seal, turn a mediocre house into a passive house, and whiten your teeth. You guys hit on most of its obvious problems, and I won't bore you with the other ones I see. There is really no reason to use foam, rigid or sprayed, above grade, and it's pretty indefensible from a global warming perspective. Finally, cellulose. While I love the idea of us all finding a use for our fine home building collections, I want to ease your worried minds. Timber HP, a Maine-based company, is working on various wood fiber products. The one that's getting the most attention is their fiber board insulated sheathing, think Gutex. But the first product they're introducing, supposedly in 2023, is a blown-in product to replace cellulose with raw wood fiber. One of my crew went on a factory tour recently, and it sounds like they're pretty close. The fine home building shredding also reminds me of a brilliant idea from one of my mentors, Paul Eldred Camp, formerly of Bigmeister. He called it a deep attic retrofit. You shed the contents of the client's attic and spread it for R value. Double points if they have a magazine collection up there. Finally, it's great to see Patrick at Touch a Trade hosted by Ian's former employers. We're getting a committee ready for a Southern Maine version. Oh, that's fantastic. Thanks for that, Dan. PPS, did you guys know I co-wrote a book? You might like it.
I love that he did some self-promotion there at the end.
That was fantastic, Dan. Thank you for listening. Thank you for writing in. It was fun to read. And Touch a Trade was a joy of my life, in all sincerity. The time now, folks, if you're thinking about doing your own, is to start planning it. So do that, and let's try and get some more people into this pretty fun business that we do. On the subject comes from Doug. Hi, all. I've been countless discussions about getting young people interested in the trades. I feel exposure is key. Our youngest grandson just turned 10. At his birthday party, some of his friends may have wondered at his excitement over some of his gifts. He always has liked creating things and has moved from paper and cardboard to wood. His latest is an 18-inch long VW Bug. He has his own jigsaw and cordless drill. He cut out the sides with a jigsaw and then used narrow strips of wood to form the curve of the hood and roof. I think you got to get this kid an English wheel. For his birthday, he said he wanted wooden screws. I went through my lumber rack and collected the short pieces that I will never use and couldn't bring myself to throw out. I also got an assortment of screws and a pack of jigsaw blades. I am sure some of his friends wondered when he excitedly exclaimed, "Saw blades!" The reason for his comfort with tools is that he has grown up watching his father build and repair things. When he was 2, he climbed up on the roof to help Dad. His father grew up in our house with the same exposure. Our old house was always under some sort of renovation, and repair persons were unheard of. I hope events like Touch a Trade can inspire those kids who don't grow up seeing things built and repaired. Well, thank you, Doug. That sounds like fun, right?
For sure.
So around this time every year, people start asking like what I want for Christmas. And for a long time, I was like getting into building furniture, and I'd just be like American hardwoods. And I feel a lot like Doug's grandson. And it actually, reading through this before the show, it made me think about like when I was a kid, I had like a set of tools that had like blue painted handles. So I did like this dive on the internet. It's the Handy Andy kids toolkit. And
Didn't that prove to be prophetic?
yeah, but it's like it had like real saws in it, like a hammer, screwdrivers, and I don't know that I built anything like of note, but just like being exposed to real tools early, like made such a difference. And the Handy Andy toolkit was put out by the Western Publishing Company.
What?
Yeah, that's as far as I got. But
I wonder if they made materials to like, projects that they probably printed and then, yeah.
So that's after the podcast. I'm going to be ordering a Handy Andy toolkit on eBay. I'm going to be paying a bunch of money for it.
I think Doug's observation
Nostalgia.
that kids around 10 is really a sweet spot for exposing them to these things. Like they haven't been too corrupted by video games yet, is my guess. Yeah. Super fun. I had one of those little toolkits too, Andrew. I'm not sure if it was the Handy Andy brand, but mediocre tools in a wood box was my iteration.
And I liked that the like wood box had like a spot for everything, that sort of like Studley tool chest light kind of thing going on.
Maybe that's why that Dudley tool chest is so appealing to me, right? Because, yeah. Is it Dudley or Studley? Studley, right?
Studley.
Studley.
Yep.
My lesser version, the Dudley version. Our first question comes from John. It's a good one. Dear FHB podcast, in Maine and Kansas City, you have BS and beer. Me, I have BS and bike riding or BS and dog walking. I use my dog walks to study buildings with either work being done or as they sit. I've been following the build and the attached pictures since the spring or summer. The windows are probably Pella or Climate Guard, a local brand that people seem to like. It's a stucco-clad four-square. There are hundreds like this around town. It is likely balloon-framed. My guess is that the house will get no air sealing benefit outside of the new windows, but they did save money by not hiring an architect or building scientist. So before we go on, do you guys think we should describe what's going on this house?
I think it's getting a pretty standard exterior remodel, right? It's getting new windows and the stucco isn't in the greatest shape anymore. So somebody's putting battens over the stucco and it's likely to get sided over those battens, right? Is that how you see it?
I think that's what I gathered too. And it looked like there was some attempt at integrating some flashing with the new window install to get the water beyond the stucco layer, it looked like to me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He says, on the exterior, you can see the 2x4 strapping. Two scenarios. We can hit stop and make this better. I'm not promoting this as reasonable, but a lot of work has already been done. Or we can pretend we could start over. What do the experts at the Fine Homebuilding podcast think about my plan for salvaging this? Put on zip R or R6 or R9 with some bug screen details at the top or bottom. I'm guessing he's saying put that right over the 2x4 referring, right? I'm not sure if the 1.5 inches is too much for the back vent. Can the windows be re-flashed or flashed over perhaps? Any kind of rain screen with whatever siding. Around here, people like Hardy or Smart Side. So going with vinyl would make the zip bar and tape hurt a bit less. Assuming we'll leave the stucco in place and do the strapping on top, jam extensions when needed, and the future could be replaced by window box and better windows. So he's saying if we're working with what's there, the window install that's already in place, you're going to have to extend the windows to the new siding plane, right? And go through the new layer of insulation he wants to add. And then hire a building scientist. I think that might be too late by that point, but what do you guys think? Is it worth putting foam insulation on the exterior of this stucco-clad house?
So this is similar to a question I posed you guys a while back when I've been thinking about my own house. And something I think Patrick you said was like the gist of it was like do all the air sealing you can and like then think about insulation on your walls, but it's likely your money's better spent other places. Correct me if I'm wrong, but so it seems like the idea that you could put zip R panels over this 1.5-inch airspace and still like detail and seal everything well enough to be effective is maybe a little dubious.
I think especially with the ventilation channel, adding exterior insulation is not going to help, right? It's like it is not coupled to the house. It's now beyond the building envelope, right? I don't know. Maybe there's some physics that I'm not noticing about this, but
I think it would be just unbelievably expensive to do what he's proposing. Is a big part of it. Thinking and looking at the pictures, one option that they could have done would have been to do some sort of a air sealing WRV membrane over
on
the
top
stucco,
of the stucco, right? Yeah.
Before putting the battens on, and I suppose you could do it over the battens and get it taped and detailed decent to the windows to get some kind of improvement on it. But I think that one thing that people in the industry and people into building science do is they assume that the person is doing this project for a building science reason, when this just strikes me as a pure aesthetics type
new
thing.
windows and siding,
actually,
right? And my guess is the siding is going to be dark gray because that's like what everyone is putting on their house right now, right?
Right. This looks to me like somebody who is sick of stucco repair or never liked it in the first place.
I'm not sure I like the idea of putting like wood siding over stucco, which is a pretty durable and, architecturally appropriate material for the area, obviously. But I think blower door directed air sealing is the thing that needs to be the first part of this conversation. Before the new siding gets put on, blower door test, and then you can fix a lot of the places where it's leaking and then put the siding on. If you skip that step, that opportunity is lost.
Yeah.
Our next question comes from Steve. Hey, FHB gang, thank you for your input about months ago about my moldy attic stairs. I'll have you know I haven't done a single thing to fix them. However, this is a totally different topic. Code officials are my point of concern. As a new construction trim carpenter, there isn't much of my daily work that has me asking, does that meet code? Here in coastal South Jersey, there are stair companies that build interior steps and do handrails, which I know isn't standard across the country. We do elevator door installs, which need to be a specific distance from the shaft and the floor. I think his point is that like finished carpentry generally doesn't involve code questions, but occasionally it does, like stairs and these elevator doors. In following your podcast and others in the high-performance world, I've gotten very interested in the energy-efficient side of it all. This has led me to start asking questions to the builders I work for. I feel like we should play some ominous music. It's a segue here.
The theme to Jaws insert here.
Blower doors and airtightness are foreign subjects to every one of them. From what I can tell, New Jersey is on the 2019 code and was on the 2015 before that, so this shouldn't be the case. It occurred to me that the issue is the inspectors don't seem to enforce these codes. Whether they're aware or not, I'm not sure, but I imagine continuing education is a thing. One builder pointed out the inspectors in my town do enforce this provision, so that's good. The issue is I work on a barrier island and live on the mainland, so houses in my town, decidedly middle class, are held to a higher standard than the multi-million-dollar homes built in the beachfront towns where I work. So what's the remedy here? Go to a town hall meeting in towns I don't live in to rant? Who's really in charge of local inspectors? Would there be someone at the county or state level to reach out to? oh, and some of these towns have the builders in elected positions, so there's a mild conflict of interest. Should I try telling them that the inspectors aren't checking everything in the houses they're building? Plus, I'm not looking to openly burn bridges here. Any input is appreciated. Thanks. P.S. Any advice on smartwatches that can handle trade work? Steve.
Quick answer for
should...
that one. There are none.
There are none? No. Okay. I haven't taken the plunge into the smartwatch because, like, I could never wear a regular watch without destroying it. So,
yeah, they're not built for that type of work, unfortunately. And just
gosh, that seems like a fantastic business idea. Is this one of these things I shouldn't be talking about on the show?
No, I think the touch screen is too difficult to get durable enough for trade work, but also have the action for touching it that you would be looking for on a smartwatch.
Doesn't it seem like a pocket watch variation would be perfect for this problem with some kind of pop open cover?
Except then you're doing the same motion you'd be doing pulling out your phone, where I think the point of the smartwatch is it's alerting you from your wrist, which is out in front of your face. But I can speak to this from the perspective of myself and my wife's family. I think every time we go on a trip or a vacation, somebody smashes their Apple Watch. So we call it the sacrifice to the Apple gods whenever we go on vacation.
What's
somebody
an Apple
has
Watch
to break
cost?
their watch. Like $400.
Holy crap.
$500. So it's an expensive thing to smash.
Yeah. What does it do?
Not a whole lot.
All right, Steve, on to the more, well, if listeners have any ideas on what is a durable smartwatch, I think it would be a huge help to our listeners who do have those crazy things. Steve, you're walking a very delicate line here between the people you work for and, the desire to build better homes for these folks who are paying millions of dollars for them. What do you guys think?
I think it's going to be very hard to affect change on a meaningful scale as just one person in a coastal town with a bunch of multi-million-dollar homeowners and builders in elected positions. I do think there's an opportunity for Steve to start his own energy consultancy business and sell his services to these people so they do build better homes.
What did Steve Basic say early on is you have to create the market, right? You have to educate the builders that you could be doing better, or somehow create a market for high performance or at least reasonably airtight homes.
Yeah.
I guess I want to hear more about what he's talking about. Is he advocating that builders go above and beyond what's in the energy code and try and do extra insulation or more air sealing beyond what code tells them to do? I know here in Madison and in Wisconsin in general, your building plans get reviewed by some code official who then it's up to them to tell you if the amount of insulation that you have in a given area is okay or not.
I think specifically Steve is talking about blower door testing and that they're just not enforcing that provision is what I read with his email, but I could have that wrong. But I think he's just saying that they're probably building to code, but this is one provision that the inspectors are just not enforcing. And I've heard that for a decade now.
Yeah, then I think Andrew's got a good idea for him. He should become the blower door guy and start doing that for all the homes.
But you have to educate them first, because if you just go and start doing blower door tests and they all fail, that seems bad for business, let's just say.
Right.
Jeff, you got thoughts on this?
Well, I like the idea of the energy consultancy and blower door, but approaching the builders during construction. It's like, let me do some testing while you're building so you can fix it before it fails.
I think that's got to be the safest approach. I think blowing the whistle on the people you work for at the state level or local level is potentially a good way to be out of work. And that's a problem unless you want to move, right? If the high-end home building is in a certain area and you've been banished because they don't like you, that's a problem. Ian, your company probably is a representative of the kind of contractor who this Steve is working for, right? Are the airtightness tests sufficiently enforced that it's a level playing field, or is it still vary?
I think it varies quite a bit. We typically don't need to do them on the remodel end of it, especially because many of these houses would never pass anything
Pass anyway. Yeah.
to begin with. And as far as any new builds, we're including that as part of our package service. But we're also trying to meet pretty strict air sealing levels and details in our work for the new builds that we're about to undertake.
Is that just a company ethic, or is it the kind of clients you want to attract, or is it enforcement? Why?
For us, I think it's part of our core values as a company to provide that type of maybe it's not passive house, but definitely the pretty good house type build to any of our clients. And I know of several other people in the area who use the same blower door service that I used for my house, which I got their contact through work. So in our area, it is a little bit more common to see builders do that.
If Steve were to approach one or more of the builders that he works for and saying, you could be offering your client a better performing, more comfortable house, and the more comfortable is the language I always hear that you're supposed to use when you're talking to folks with lots of money. And I'm guessing that one of them or more of them would be on board. What do you think? Is there a market advantage to positioning yourself that way?
I think there is, especially when you're talking about multi-million-dollar, high-end coastal homes like that. I think anything that you can do that a builder could use to set themselves apart and say, yes, our multi-million-dollar version of your house might be 5% more, but here's where that 5% is going to, and this is what the outcome of that could be in your operating cost of, if it's a multi-million-dollar home in Cape May or someplace like that in New Jersey. I mean, somebody's there 4 weekends a year, 5 weekends a year, maybe the month of August. It's got to sit there and be unoccupied, but still be safely operating the rest of the year.
I think too, the thing that a blower door does is like it puts a number on the performance aspect of your house that you can also use to differentiate yourself as a builder.
Versus a very theoretical measure of quality, right?
You saw me put the insulation in the wall. It's going to be warm. Don't worry about it. Like
we'll just put another ton of furnace in.
Yeah,
get you a 4-ton instead of a 3-ton furnace.
Steve, I think you should be heartened that you live in a place where airtightness testing is actually being enforced. And these $1 million homes are not. That's interesting to me.
I don't think there's much you can do about government corruption and building officials maybe not knowing what they're supposed to be looking at or knowing what they're supposed to be enforcing. I think you've got to pick it up from the market end of the perspective.
One of the things that is done in Minneapolis is every home that goes on the market has a truth in housing report done on it. And they're like, could you have a blower door number on that truth in housing report and at least get folks familiar with what that is, make it part of that transaction for ultimately valuing your house, maybe.
I know the Eulers, market the performance of their homes, and they're, I wouldn't describe their homes as crazy expensive, but that's how they're trying to differentiate themselves, is the comfort and performance versus homes in the similar price point.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, great question. Thanks for writing in. It's thought-provoking is how I would describe it. This is from another Steve. I have a question on low-slope roofs, new construction. What is your preferred roofing material? Modified bitumen, soldered metal, BUR membrane, or something else entirely? I feel like I'm kind of like at the eye doctor. Is this better or worse? Is this helping or not? The slope is 312 if that affects the answer. Also, I'll be having solar installed on my garage, which is a slightly lower slope of 212. Does solar here change the material choice? Thanks in advance, Patrick, Kylie, and others. Steve, I asked him where he was doing this because I think that has importance. I'm a future homeowner nerd building in Climate Zone 5B, Walla Walla, Washington. I have a builder there. Luckily, the rain there is fairly minimal, under 20 inches a year, but some snow in the winter. Interestingly, he's closer to here now, but he's moving out there apparently. So, what do you guys think? Do you have thoughts on flat roofs?
I have zero experience with flat roofs.
So I think with the flat roofs, a lot of the ones that we do here are all either EPDM type of membrane, or they are some sort of standing seam metal or soldered metal, something like that.
And I'm guessing that you don't sub this work out to just anybody. I'm guessing there's a vetting process for any one of these projects. Am I right, Ian?
Yeah, you need to go to somebody who can do low slope roofs. One of the quirks of a lot of the homes in Madison is that they have these little porches off the second floor, which are typically on top of a kitchen addition or a front porch addition.
What could go wrong?
Right. Frequently, we are putting a walkable PVC material on the roof, so it's good for the low slope roof, but then you save some money by not having to put decking over it. It stays cool enough to go out and walk on during the summer. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing material, but oftentimes if you think about the money you save by not putting a Trex deck or something over the top of it, most people end up going with something
they
like
can live with it, right?
Yeah, you can live with it. Yeah.
Well, I think it's
But
fair
again,
to say that
it requires a specialized contractor.
I think it's fair to say that none of us should be advising on low slope roofing. So I went to an expert, Diami, my friend, who's been super helpful to the podcast, and I'm always grateful for his quick and thorough responses. So here's what Diami says. Patrick, for any climate other than the Sun Belt and Deep South where a white reflective roof makes sense, I would recommend EPDM. For Steve's project, EPDM has the advantage of long-term UV stability and waterproof seams. Any solar penetrations can be easily flashed with EPDM flashings. If installed correctly, the EPDM should last 25 to 30 years with a 212 or 312 pitch. I've heard there is a good article about EPDM roofing in issue 305 of Fine Homebuilding.
Let me guess, he wrote it?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
That's the gutter detail one?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a cool.
So we did a case study of a mid-century home with some unique architectural features, and Diami had to solve roof problems there that probably had been inherent to the design from when the house was built. So, to speak to the roofing systems he mentions, modified bitumen is often done by any carpenter that has a ladder, and that is to say, is often done cheaply and incorrectly.
It's a low barrier to entry for that type of work. Ladder.
Soldered metal is obnoxiously difficult to install and expensive. Build-up roofing has not been cost competitive since the early 2000s, and as the price of oil has gone up, the quality of roofing asphalt has gone down. This leaves BUR as a smelly system that costs a lot and does not perform. All that being said, the most important thing is he finds a local contractor that knows what they are doing. They should be commercial/flat roofers first and foremost. Roofing is too important to trust to someone who doesn't know it, and it's too specialized to trust to someone who doesn't deal with it every day. He says, if I can be Any help with specific assembly questions or detailing, please let me know. Thank you, Diami. Diami, thank you. Diami's business, Roof Services of Deer Park, New York, is a valued contributor to Fine Homebuilding, and I'm grateful for his help as always. What do you guys think? You sold on the EBDM?
I'm doing whatever Diami says.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I would do too. Yeah, and it's easily some of the best value for the podcast media hours you're spending is listening to folks who know what they're doing. So I appreciate all of you who write in with expertise. It really makes the show much better and more fun. So thank you.
In general, I think the low slope roofs are an underused design element because they are super easy to build and pretty easy to detail, with the exception of that roof puzzle. But taking Diami's lead and looking for a commercial-minded roofing contractor, I think can make those assemblies a really worthwhile thing to think about when you're designing, whether it's a small addition or the small under 2,000 square foot homes.
I totally agree, and folks have heard me say that on the podcast. And when other folks say that they question the reliability, I want to remind them that there are like billions of square feet of commercial real estate that are under these membrane roofs.
Yeah.
And they have to work, right? Like what happens when the Amazon warehouse floods? That's a huge problem, right? So insurance companies are involved. You can be guaranteed that it's tested and works. Well, folks, stay tuned for the Fine Homebuilding podcast after show, where we're going to be talking about workwear and what works and what doesn't in what conditions, and things that will make you more comfortable or maybe able to do your craft longer. So I think it should be a fun conversation. I hope you stick around for it. Do you guys have anything to add before we part company? So glad
Andrew.
I have you guys on the show.
I got something for Andrew. Your latest Keep Craft Alive with John Stefani, that was in the magazine. I really enjoyed reading. I sat in on John's estimating class for 2 classes earlier this year that anybody who remembers listening to the podcast back in February might remember me talking about sitting in with John. So thought that was really cool to get him out there.
Yeah, that podcast is going to be going live here too on Sunday. So make sure to check that out as well, because it was a fascinating conversation about like talking with somebody whose sole job is to keep craft alive and like get new folks into the trades. It was really, really good conversation, and I want to get down to Madison to see one of their tiny home builds too. I think that whole program is really interesting.
Well, good stuff. And everyone who's listening, stay tuned for the after show. And thanks very much for listening. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today. Thanks to Andrew, Ian, and Jeff for joining me. And thanks to all of you for listening and sending in your contributions. Please remember to send us your questions, suggestions to fhbpodcast@taunton.com. And please like, comment, or review us however you're listening. It helps other folks find our podcast. Stay safe, everybody. Keep craft alive. Happy building. Thanks again for listening.